in this last part, I would then like to simply quickly show you how I would set up the rendering for this object, the scene, and also I would like to introduce you to the depth of field effect, which is kind of like the last rendering effect we didn't really talk about yet. So let's quickly get our scene set up. So I'm creating myself a nice plane. 0, 0, 0, whoops, 0 there, edit and scale. And I'm just creating myself a nice simple backdrop there. And actually, you know what? This line here, I bevel, because instead of using the subsurface, I just use a bevel command to round this part. Zip. Okay. And then, whoa, wrong one. Let's scale this along Y. Shade smooth, okay. Shift S to select it. Camera, zip, 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 there. And actually this line, I keep it for the moment there. Okay. So this camera, I'll move up, GZZ, so I can move in a little bit. Let's take a look. Of course, my scene is dark. I don't have any light. There's my part. Okay. Doesn't look too bad. Woo. Zoom in a little bit. And curious about the reflectivity. Yeah, that. Oh yeah, I had this my Fresnel effect here toned down because my mesh light was so strong. So now you see I have a nice shimmer effect on it. So that's good. Maybe if I want to, I can select this table and simply rotate it. Oh, I have to do that together with my curves. Actually, I shift select my table and then I go to object and say parent. Where is you? There. Parent to object. Oh, did I do it? Let's try object, object. Okay. That basically means my table is the parent, the legs, curves are the children, and just ignore this artifact of jiggly legs. The moment you click, it's fine. You see, this way I rotate my table, including actually my my curves following it. Okay, so actually you see I have a really simple setup, just a white environment, and then bang bang the background and the table. But maybe I still want to have a nice key light because this is maybe a little bit too dull, too uniform. So make myself an empty somewhere and create myself an area light. Zip. This one can be smaller. Whoa. Bad habit. Change this one to 50 centimeters, just this way, and this one maybe 2 meters. Yeah, that looks good. Multiply, shift the empty, control T, track, zip, zip. So you see how fast you can actually work once you memorized what to do, and that's really the key. You have to memorize it. Oh, look at this. Really nice illumination shot against this part, shadow to the left. That looks so much nicer already. So another reason why Keyshot is nice and easy, it just doesn't do much for you. I do not have this control of designing my shots. That's ultimately my biggest complaint about the software. Maybe just border render, for the moment only that. And okay, so to make this one a little bit quicker, I simply turn the background off so the rendering is faster, because I'm video recording while rendering, so I'm stressing my computer a lot. Good old buddy from 2008. No, do not hide, simply move up. Because what I'm curious now is maybe this one I move to there, this light to there. So I'm projecting more light onto this front part. So you see this one is slightly in the shadow. And that overblows to exposed. Yeah, under 25 maybe. Yeah, let's keep it at that. Wonderful. Alt H. And the thing is now you see the lighting is even a little bit stronger because light from the floor bounces up. So 110. And later I can do a little bit more of tone mapping anyway. So, but maybe this is a little bit too dull. So zip, zip, zip. Let's take a look at this. Maybe just from there. Oh, I get a nice highlight onto this part. Now that's a question if I want it or not. So this highlight is actually the area light that's being reflected here right now. Let's hide this one. Let's turn the light for the wall to 0 so I can actually see what that area light is illuminating. In 1, 200 can be stronger because it's further away. It actually creates a nice contrast because this side gets light, this is in shadow. If I hide this one, you see brightness wise I mainly look to here. This is all in shadow, so I need a light there a little bit. And now I have to decide, do I want my light to come mainly from the left or the right? I shouldn't make any conflicting stuff. If you look into classical art, etc., you will see very often light comes from the left. So, but I don't really like this highlight here. This is kind of annoying. Yeah, so what I'm going to do, I select my light, go to ray visibility and say glossy, bye-bye. So I just illuminate it so the diffuse is shooting light onto there. Okay. And I think this one really has to tone down maybe 0, okay, and 80. Yeah, 80 is enough already, or maybe 90. So you see a really easy and quick way: backdrop, world light, 2 area lights, and you have a somewhat really already acceptable illumination. So the last thing that now is actually going to be interesting to look at is the depth of field effect. So for depth of field, basically the camera needs to know where the focus part should be. And I'm going to do it this way. So Shift S, empty, this empty, let's make it 25, 25 centimeters, not meters. Zip, light and empty, Control T, track 2. So wherever I have, for example, this empty, I could say at one point later, focus. And let's click the camera. And for example, here we have the depth of field. So this empty, for example, I'm going to call DOF. And let's go back to the camera. There it is. Zip. Let's do a rendering. Don't really see anything. And let's start maybe playing with those settings. Whoa. Way too big. So 10 centimeters. So now you see the front is kind of like sharpish. And I leave it at the moment at this because what I would like to show you is the following. So if I move this empty now away, you see my table is completely blurry. If I move it to the mid part, you see the mid part of my table is blurry. If I go to the back part is sharp. The front part is sharp. The rest is blurry. So how does this one work? It's actually a very simple way to explain this. So hold on. I just do it this way and empty plane. How should we do that? Hold on. Oh yeah, I do it that way. So track 2, and then for the track 2, Y up, and I think Z is forward. There. Let's set this to local. And I move just this mesh and this plane parent to my camera. So when I move my camera, you see that plane moves with it. And you see actually there, this plane is always perpendicular to my camera. So, and the way how the depth of field basically works is wherever I have my empty, I have a plane, and everything on this plane, now this is at an angle, is going to be sharp, and everything away perpendicular from that plane is going to be progressively getting blurry. So you see right now, this way the blurriness would be horizontally. And if, for example, I have my camera here, blurriness would progress vertically. So right now, for example, I would see actually the floor perfectly sharp and everything above would be blurry because this plane is lined up with the floor. And that's basically the way how you could imagine yourself the depth of field. So if I put back maybe my scene and I move my camera in a little bit and move this empty to there. So where this empty is, along the angle of this plane, everything will be sharp. So to give you a proof of that, I'm going to ignore this one for the camera. So pay attention to this line, and there you see everything along this line is sharp. So that's basically really how easy depth of field really is. It's not very complicated. It's very powerful. Depth of field can be set for each camera. So if you have multiple cameras, you can adjust that for each one individually. So it's not a global setting. Let's maybe fine tune the effect a little bit. So maybe 5 centimeters, 1 centimeter. So I'm curious actually about, ooh, I changed my key settings on this computer. So you see the back is slightly blurry. The front is pretty sharp. Also there, it's slightly blurry, so maybe 5 millimeters. You see that gets smaller. So number one problem I very often see with depth of field is simply an overuse of that effect, too strong. So something like this is really not good for product rendering. You want to have a little bit of maybe blurriness in the background so that your eye ultimately is guided more to the sharper area. And yeah, so this rendering doesn't look too bad. And before I maybe do a final rendering, I actually maybe take a look at some tone mapping. Here again, I have my RGB curve, and let's see if maybe I can increase the contrast a little bit. Very often, computer renderings have a little bit of a gray filter on them. That's because the colors are raw, or not the colors, but just, yeah, well, actually the colors, yeah. But they're not really raw. I mean, they're not tone mapped, because very often, like a JPEG and all these things are tone mapped for your display. So you see this way I pump in the contrast quite nicely. Works pretty well. Has a small red filter that later maybe I could adjust, maybe a little bit less red, more blue. There. See, that doesn't look good. So maybe I do that differently, not in this mode. Or alternatively, I could maybe see what can I do with exposure and gamma. Oh, look at there. That also works. So again, multiple ways how you can ultimately do all those color adjustments. Okay, so that was part one, and then as the last part, for those who are interested, I would like to show you the compositor. So there you can actually see even more what we do with nodes and materials. I can do the same actually inside my inside Blender as like processing finished images after I rendered them. So let's do a quick rendering, maybe 20 samples just for the test rendering. Render, zip, there it is. Okay, nice. So inside the node editor, you have actually three options for materials, for the compositor, and for textures. And I want to go to the compositor. Click, use nodes, and shift spacebar, backdrop. Oh, where's my backdrop? Oh yeah, never mind. It's all fine. So output, for example, the viewer, and okay, so composite, this actually thing, so if I go Shift A, output, composite, that's basically kind of like what in the material system is the output material. That's basically whatever ends in here will be written into a file, and the viewer can be used to simply see a step in between. And with the viewer and through the backdrop, I can see my rendering. Now I can add, for example, an color correction or gamma or tone map, hue correction, RGB curve. So for example, I can go to here and then, for example, play with this. So you see, I adjust this a little bit, or maybe tiny little bit of darkness, not too much. You can be really very gentle with what you do. So for example, now I have to make myself another viewer. There, see before and after. Looks like the effect is not really very strong, so let's do this a little bit more. And there. Whoops. Oh, I have to click on the title tab. I always turn this alpha off. There you can see kind of like the difference, what my node thing is doing here. So let's say that's my tone mapping, or not tone mapping, my gradation adjustment. If, for example, the radish I don't really like, I can plug this one in and maybe change the hue. So for example, give the redness away or increase it. And you can really be very gentle with the way how you click on those. See, actually, this one looks better, and this one is kind of greenish, so nope. 0.5, maybe tiny bit up. Let's see. Yeah, maybe like this. And you also have, for example, filters, for example, to blur, glare, defocus. We have also sharpen filters. So let's see, where's the focus one? I think that is, yeah, there it is. Zip. It's under simply filter. So right now you see everything is soft or sharpen or really gentle, not too much, maybe 0.1, a little bit of, ooh, way too much, 0.01. And those filters are, or those viewers are really easy, you know, use and very useful. You see, I added a viewer after and before. So click, so I can compare. 0.05, too much. So maybe at this point now the rendering is not big enough. So zip and render. And the really fantastic thing about this composite thing is the following. You will see that just in a second. You set up it once, and then when you do change your rendering, it just processes that new image instantly. There, see, now I have my bigger image. If you would do this in Photoshop, you basically, with the new image, would have to start from scratch, or you save everything as a Photoshop action. So that's actually a lot of work, and here it's so much easier to do. So I'm not sure if the sharpen really does much here right now. And the thing is, with the sharpen one, you just want to have it there, so you see it a little bit, not too much. Yeah. Okay, I can have as many viewers as I want. So I can really compare. I could even say, well, this sharpen and this output, and here show me just the result of this, or with the here saturation. See, this one actually looks more yellowish. That's better. This is too reddish in my opinion. So in any case, this node I like. Zip. And then if I now go to file and save. Oh, that's not actually here. That's now inside my image. My UV editor, combined, composite, render layer. Hold on one second. Render result, yeah. Viewer node. Oh, what happened? What did I do here? Image. Oh, that's interesting. No, zip. So render result, combined, composite, the render layer. Oh yeah, there you see if I switch between composite, so this is the outcome, or render layer, that's the raw image. I see the difference. And if I like this processing, then I could go to image, save as, go to my desktop, save my image, and let's take a look. And there it is. If I now quit Blender, all those nodes are saved. So if I then later render it again, render it with a different size, for example, when you have to make an image for different print sizes or so, all those touch-ups you don't have to do. You just set it up once, and then Blender is simply processing it for you automatically. So for example, now let's go and say, make this one with 50 samples. So I have a little bit more of, or I have a bit less of that render grain. And also the depth of field looks a little bit smoother. Okay, computer hard at work. But I hope that actually at this point you start seeing why, while I have Photoshop, I simply don't use it anymore, because everything I could do in Photoshop, I can simply do in Blender and set it up once, and then I don't have to do it anymore. So, you know, I just render it bigger and then this one processed that image for me. And that's just simply ultimately an extreme time saver, and it makes your work easier and also more consistent, because later, let's say a month later, 2 months later, I have to do this rendering again for a portfolio, whatever, and I don't remember all the steps I did in Photoshop. Then I have to sit down and try to figure out what did I do, and waste a lot of time. And then this approach would have been a lot faster, because it's just more automated. Okay, so I hope that this actually was logical and interesting. Give this one a try. And again, just all you need to do is turn this one on, turn use nodes on. You have a composite, that is output. You only need this one once. Viewer, those are the different things here. And then you have, for example, under color, RGB curves, color balance. I mean, there are a lot of different tools you can use. Under filter, you have like the filter or blur or other elements. Those are the ones I use the most actually for touching up renderings. You have, of course, a lot more in here, for example, for vector or format for like green keying or such things. This is very much used and more actually for when you do animations and you want to composite different shots, etc. Okay, that's it. And just as a teaser, and maybe to give you a little bit more understanding of the beauty of such systems and where high-end compositors or how high-end compositors work, instead of exporting, for example, my background and my foreground and all this into Photoshop as different images and then doing the compositing there, I can do everything right here. So for example, inside scene, I have render layer and I have render passes. So what a pass means, I can generate an image for the everything combined. Just show me maybe the vector, or for example, the shadow, ambient occlusion. Only show me in the image objects and how the emit light, yada 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 yada. But currently what's really interesting might be the render layer. And let's say we call this one table. We make another one and we call this one floor. Now you see here you have scenes and you have layers. So what I can do is actually on here I would like to render, let's see what's on what layer. On this layer we have the table, so table should be this one. And where actually my lights? Lights are here, so this one as well. Okay, and here I would like to have my lights and this one. Okay, so you see what each layer should use. And then before you have seen, that's basically kind of like when I click something in here, what I will see. This might look really confusing right now, but hold on, let's do a rendering. And then you will see what the whole point is. Now you see actually it renders a layer of the table and only shows the table and the lights, and now it renders the floor and only shows the floor and the lights. But that's a nice thing. The table was physically there, it was just invisible, and it casted the shadows. So inside my compositor now, I have render layer, and you see table and floor. Shift D can make another one. Let's call this one floor. Let's create a viewer. Let's take a look. And there's my floor with the shadows. So really nice. So why and how, where is that useful? The thing is I have two different layers. I can do a really nice amount of image processing now. So I'm going to clean up a lot of this stuff for the moment because I don't want to see this anymore. And there, and there, zip, 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 to there, there. That's all set. And move it to there. So now I have my backdrop and I have my my table image. Now on one side, what I could do is I go to color alpha over and say mix place my table over my backdrop. And that looks like this. Hold on, why doesn't it actually do that? The direction was wrong there. So there you see basically my table and the backdrop. And this, for example, I can plug in there. And zip, there. So looks like before, but there's one minor nice difference now. First, the shadows are colored. I could actually now go to color and say convert RGB to black and white, plug this one on there, and then now magically my color, my shaders are desaturated. And maybe because this is all a little bit grainy, I would like to blur the floor, but not really my table. So I go to filter, blur, plug this one in, Gaussian blur, okay, yeah, and maybe 2 and 2. Let's take a look. Yeah, there. And maybe this art should be too black and white, I don't like. Or maybe I do. Yeah. Okay, so you see that basically I'm breaking out my scene into different layers, like in Photoshop. Then I adjust each layer, and then with the alpha over, I simply blend them all back together, and then I continue my image processing as I did before. And here again, same applies as what I said before. If I change my render settings here to a better quality and then hit render, the software then simply renders each layer again. But you see that actually it renders each image twice. And sorry, not image twice. It renders twice, but it renders each layer. So you end up with two images, which means render time might go up a little bit. So you don't want to have too many render layers, but the upside is you have really nice compositing options. Because in Photoshop, if I would like then to go in and touch up my shaders, I really would have to first draw a mask for my table, be really careful about it. I might not be even accurate. So there, that requires time as well. And then here I can simply render it into two different passes, different layers. not passes, and then inside the compositor have the ability to do my adjustments afterwards. So let's give this one a moment to render. It's nearly done. And maybe at the moment to come back to Boris's questions, where to get all this information, etc. Books are good, but the problem is in today software develops so fast. Books are quickly outdated after they're published. So use Google. For example, how to make wood material of Google, how to make brushed steel, not with Google, with Blender, of course, or so. Or if you're in Fusion or if you're in Alias and you have a question, just use forums, post questions. Chances are very high you get answers. And to be honest, that is how 100% of my knowledge I gained, just using online resources. So you see, this is actually not too bad. It's maybe a little bit too artificial, but I think there's a little line here, but it seems to be okay. So maybe ultimately I do not want to desaturate the ground, so that's fine, so I remove it. And then I could save this one. Okay, that now was really everything for this semester. Oh, I nearly forgot to say that, so I'm sorry, there's always something I'm missing. Currently the composite is saving everything into one image, but in case you would like to have those different layers saved as images as well, you can then actually go to the UV image editor and say combined, and instead of composite, simply select table or floor, and then say image save as floor, and let's take a look. There you see, it is transparent. So it really saves actually from Blender what you have specified inside this render layer. Okay, so that was really everything. Peace out.